Welcome. We did it. We made it to the Learning Stories Conference, and I'm excited to be here, welcoming you to today's virtual workshop. I'm Mike Brown. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Senior Community Engagement Manager for Hilltop Children's Center and Educator Institute, a Reggio inspired preschool after school program and equity focused professional development institute. And today I'm broadcasting from my office, which is situated on the cultural, spiritual, and celebratory lands and meeting place for the Duwamish tribe, the first people of what is now referred to as Seattle, Washington. And we have an awesome, intriguing, thought provoking workshop heading your way in a couple of minutes. A workshop that honestly wouldn't be made possible without a variety of different sponsors and partners and individuals like yourself. And today's session will be led by a very, very talented Malcolm. It's been so great to have the chance to work with her even more closely these last few weeks as we develop this presentation. And I'm even more honored to be able to introduce her today. Naoko comes from a land far, far away. She comes from Japan and she moved to the United States in 2003. And depending on what day you catch her, she's either working with our ones and twos at Hilltop Children's Center, Educator Institute, or with our three and fives mixed age group, or she's dropping some knowledge like she's about to do right now in presentations, interviews, or webinars she's been asked to do. So sit back, relax, and be prepared, right, to have a little bit of fun for the next hour or so. So, Naoko, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Okay, my screen's not behaving. Here you go. Hi, everybody. My name is Naoko Armstrong. Mike introduced me, and I have been in a preschool classroom. It's a mixed age 3-year-old and 5-year-old classroom most of the time at Hilltop, but this year during the COVID, I also peeked into the younger toddler classroom. This is my 5th year at Hilltop, and I was born and raised in Japan, and I moved here to the United States as an adult. So I have a big cultural base in Japan, but my adult knowledge is almost all from the United States. So today I'm really excited to share some work I've done in Hilltop, and I'd like to think together about how to respond to the children's interest while we are mindful about our own discomfort and challenges as adults. So before putting a hat as an educator, we all come as individual human beings with hobbies or preferences or even dislikes. So as I believe most of us, most of you have been through a class or maybe workshop about learning and acknowledging our own strengths and challenges as educators. And do you remember or do you recall what the first thing you'd learned when you reflected about yourself in the classroom? Because I believe everyone found a way or looking for a way to incorporate the own challenges in a group of children you have each year. And I remember personally that I listed organizing skill, and the calmness as my strengths in the classroom. Ironically, I also learned that these two, organizing skill and the calmness, can be my challenges in the classroom at the same time. So, for example, I like to make sure all the materials are back in the original shape after the kids clean up. That's a small example of my organizing part. Or when the children face the conflict, no matter how emotional they are, I stay absolute calm and stay with them as much as they need me. And I believe these are my strengths. But what if the kids see no value in the full set of toys? Or what if it's just for myself, my satisfaction to care about that part? Or how about when the kids enjoy the loud, chaotic, big, messy games day after day for a long time? What if I have a group of children whose learning style is not necessary from the calm environment? What would you do when a child or a group of children find an absolute joy in the activity you don't enjoy at all as an adult? How can we reflect the children's interest and joy while you hold your own value and being kind to yourself? So that's what I would like to talk about today. And I am going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so today, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at two screens, so my focus is going to be sometimes just like on the right side, but I think you are looking at my PowerPoint, so excuse my sight on the right side. So today, I will talk about the group of children we had a couple of years ago in a preschool. It's a 3 to 5 year old mixed age classroom. And those children enjoyed mixing all kind of materials every day, all day. So what they mixed were beads, jewels, blocks, rocks, or sticks, or like everything you can think of in the classroom, you name it. So when we asked the questions about what kind of game they were playing, they had a good vision most of the time. So sometimes it's a treasure hunt game, other time it's a game about restaurant, and oftentimes for their game, they dumped all of those materials behind a couch or the smallest place that they could only find, like between furnitures or between the couches and the shelves. So in the classroom, I worked with two experienced educators. We call the game dumping game because that's what it was to us teachers. Day after day, they found a different way to play the dumping game. That was the teacher's nightmare for a long time. They misplaced the materials, and then we started losing the materials. And then sometimes the toys were broken, and then we see that broken toys more often than the other year we had children in the classroom. And also, the cleanup after those games took way too long, and the children start losing the focus. So it was hard every day to do the cleanup. And that game looked unsustainable to us, and then we were very frustrated. So as a team, we tried to problem solve together. First, we limited the number of materials. For example, instead of leaving a bowl full of jewels, we only put 10 jewels in the bowl. Or instead of having 8 different kind of materials in the block area, we reduced to only 3 different types of blocks. But it didn't stop them from mixing the toys, and eventually toys were misplaced or broken. So the children kept finding another way to dump more if jewels are not available. If blocks are not available, they opened a few boxes of puzzles and mixed them all together. So if you can picture this, just imagine the 4 boxes of 36 pieces puzzles mixed very well. And when cleanup time comes, you can probably imagine what happens there. It was draining day after day, so we learned quickly that our problem solving didn't help. It didn't help because we were trying to solve the problem just for us, teachers. It didn't help because it's probably never seen as a problem for the children. So after trying out several solutions and they failed, I said to my team, what if we just let them? Obviously, there was something attractive about dumping and mixing, and there was a strong interest in this game for this group of children. Even though it's not what we like to see every day with missing toys and broken items, I started to wonder if there is a learning opportunity for all of us if we just let them do this game. They come back to this game day after day and we repeat the same messages every day. And we think they understand the draining cleanup after the game. So, this can be an opportunity to learn about joy, responsibility, risk teamwork, consequences, and so much more. That's how I started to observe their game intentionally and closely instead of just monitoring where they put the materials. So one day, I sat and observed the biggest dumping game three kids participated. And then later, I wrote a story about them and the game. So this is the story I wrote. It's called Dumping and the Responsibility. Callum, Henry, Tenzo played the garbage truck and clean up all of the materials. And I'm going to read what I wrote here. Since the beginning of the school year, mixing all the small materials has been a big part of the Sunlight Children's Day. It was a Sunlight classroom. Despite the teachers' problem solving with the missing pieces and toys, the kids have been enjoying mixing and dumping all kind of toys. This morning, Henry brought all the 8 basketful of materials from the shelves to the big block area. Then Callum and Tenzo helped to dump all of them into the tall basket that was originally a home for the pipes. The basket wasn't full of all the small materials, so they found stuffed animals, saving name cards, sensory toys, blocks, small baskets, and many more items to fill it completely. Callum had an idea to dump the basket full of materials at a dumping station, pretending the basket was a garbage truck and that 3 of them were garbage men. They carried the heavy basket to another spot in the classroom and made the beeping sound as the garbage was dumped. From a grown-up's view, the only thing I could think of the entire time was how time-consuming it would be to sort the materials and put them away in the appropriate places. As they kept adding more items in the basket, I made a comment to them once that it would be a lot of cleanup for them. Tenzo's response was, maybe other kids will help us. Maybe we can use a forklift. After the basket full of materials was dumped on the floor, Callum quietly started to sort the items by himself and handed to them to Tenzo to put back on the shelf. Henry walked to the art table after dumping, but he came back after a few minutes and told Callum and Tenzo, let's do the binder clips, then people figures to clean up. Soon the cleanup timer went off for the whole class. Everyone cleaned up their toys and started to get ready for lunch. The garbage truck crews had to keep cleaning all the materials even after other children started to eat their lunch. But they stayed there to finish the cleanup patiently. First, I was ready for the long, draining, possibly unfinished cleanup after display. However, they started the process without any adults suggesting it. They made a plan for how to clean by themselves. They were responsible, and they showed incredible patience until everything was sorted and put away. I've been wondering and curious about the children's interest and the persistent desire around mixing and dumping so many kind of toys. What is the motivation and the satisfaction behind the activity? Are they looking for the sensory stimulation, such as the noise of toys falling on each other and the visual effect of intermixed items? What do children see as a goal of this activity? Or do they have a clear goal in mind? How did the children involved view the long cleanup? And did they feel it was a consequence? Or was it an anticipated conclusion to the game? Since it's been an ongoing game for the whole class, I'm interested in observing more of this mix and dump to see the children's views around this activity. So this is what I wrote first time when I had intentional observation of this story. So here's the time I would like you to post the video for 5 to 10 minutes. And then I have a couple of reflective questions. So I'd like you to spend some time to think about these. So the questions for sitting with discomfort in the classrooms. What kind of children's behavior or activity make you feel uncomfortable and why? How did you or would you turn it into an opportunity? If you did, what was the children's response? How are you using or will you use this experience in the classroom daily? So please pause the video and we'll come back in 5 to 10 minutes. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a great discussion about these reflective questions. Mike has some question for me.
Yeah, I do. I thought that was interesting. And as I was sitting here listening, I thought about my own discomfort and how uncomfortable I am. And early on, when I was an educator, I always wanted to have that control and I always wanted to be like, hey, you have to do this and kind of make it really structured. So, my question to you is what did you personally have to let go of? Um, from previous teaching experience, from what you learned in school? What did you kind of have to let go of in order to allow um, uh, the children to do this dumping and sorting?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I have this like controlling feeling about how classrooms should look like or how children should play in the classroom. And that was the biggest part I needed to let go because I have to learn that this is everybody's space. And I'm just here to give them the opportunity, not to tell them what to do. So if they like to play that way, I have to be really mindful. This is their space, and I'm just there to support whatever they're working on. So that was the biggest part.
It sounds to me like you're talking a lot about just citizenship in the classroom, kind of the democracy. Um, how do you communicate that to children that this is their space? Do you just say it?
I didn't. I didn't communicate it. I just changed my presence in the classroom. Instead of like, oh, let's put this toys over there, or I'm just worried that you're just gonna have a long draining cleanup. I just sat there,
Mm.
and if there is difficulties later, I also sat with them for a long time. Yeah, I just like demonstrated like, okay, let's just do this together.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so going back to the story. So when you learned or noticed your own discomfort in the classroom, we have several options. That learning story about the game of garbage truck was only the beginning for myself. This was an opportunity to open my eyes and decide to sit with my discomfort, to be truly responsive and then reflect what these children are working on. Earlier, just before this, like I was answering to Mike's question, this is how I started to just like open the space for everybody else, even though I was just uncomfortable there. It was definitely challenging for myself as a person who is proud of the organizing skill. But after the intentional observation and writing the story about it, I wanted to create more platform for the children to explore this game. So my hope was to extend the game and offer the place to build a skill without forcing them. So at Hilltop, we have a project called Indepth Project in each classroom during spring, like after New Year around the springtime. So Indepth Project is a small group activity in which children explore a topic over an extended period of time with an educator. So Indepth Project is support peer relationships, support the interest in play intentionally with provocations, and explore the topic together, problem solve together, think about the next step together, and inviting the families, and also reflect with families as a team. So it's a pretty big project as an educator, and the teaching team discusses about the topics we'd like to work on and which children we invite in the group. So that year, I challenged myself to invite the dumpers, people who like to dump every day, for my group. And then I named the group as sorting group. After each meeting as a sorting group, we write a summary. So here's what I wrote from my first meeting. I'm just going to read a little bit about the first meeting of my sorting group. So the idea of sorting groups started to grow over the last couple of months as I observed the daily activity of the sunlight children dumping and mixing the small materials. It has been a struggle for us teachers to find a balance between the children's interest in dumping and the responsibilities to clean up all the items they mixed. Usually, after the dumping and mixing, the consequences is a long, draining cleanup they don't want to do. Yet, they keep coming back to this game day after day. Even though it has been a struggle, I started to feel interested in finding out what this kind of game means to the young children. So in my sorting group, I had 6 children and I met with them once a week. Before the first meeting, I had these questions in my mind. So the questions I had were, what are the children exploring by mixing all the small materials? What does this activity provide for the children? How much room should we make for them to freely explore that interest? How much should we step in to limit the number of items so they can clean up by themselves? So when our sorting group met first time, I didn't explain what the sorting group was, and I wasn't even sure where these children would take the group from here. To be truly emergent, we set just provocations and the children lead and we observe and then we think about the next step. At the first meeting, we met in a smaller room called the community studio where anyone can reserve and use. So we started the meeting with the morning snack and the picnic style on the floor. So while we are having snack together on the floor, we discussed about using the common space and the toys that belongs to everyone at Hilltop, not just for us, for the Sunlight kids. The kids discussed about what is okay to use, what shouldn't be touched, and how we should use them mindfully. So I could see that they were thinking to be respectful and responsible. And I also asked them two questions together what their ideas about the big picture of cleanup. Of course, in my mind, I was talking about the cleanup after the dumping game. So the question I asked them, the first one was, what is sorting? What do you know about sorting? And one kid said, take one thing, put it in another place. It means you put one thing in its right place and another thing in its right place. And the second question from me was, why is it hard to clean up our own mess sometimes? And kids said, not fun. It's a giant mess. But people can slip on the toys. So by the time we gather again for the second meeting, I heard the kids' ideas shifted a little bit. So I asked them the same question from the week before, and this is what they said. So I had exactly same question. The first one was, what is sorting? What do you know about sorting? And one kid said, we are a sorting group, putting the toys in the right basket. And another kid said, it means organizing. So after the second meeting, I wrote another write-up, and I'm just going to read a little bit of the write-up. Right after the snack, Noah grabbed the container full of small bees and accidentally dropped it on the floor. He immediately started to pick up the bees, asking other friends if they see any. They all started crawling on the floor, pretending the bees as garbage, then putting them into the trash can, which was the original bowl for the bees. This was my aha moment of the meeting when Noah asked for a help. They made a cleanup as a fun game and all worked together to be responsible as a team. Just a side note, Noah was the kid who did not feel comfortable asking for help. So this was just a really great moment for me and all other things about being responsible as a team. So this happened during this meeting, and this was only the second meeting. And I never gave a speech about being responsible or being working together. Instead, I felt like I was able to just provide a space for them by meeting as a sorting group weekly. So they naturally start to think about that accountability as preschoolers. And after this great aha moment, the kids got really excited at the end of the meeting, and they were kind of having like big body play and started to dump everything on the floor, which was totally fine. But the excitement kind of went to much bigger place, and then one child threw a glass jar on the floor, and unfortunately, this jar got shattered all over the floor. So there were like small bees and small blocks, like everything on the floor, plus the shattered glass pieces. So I was in this like adult mode. I'm like, I don't want anybody to get hurt. And unfortunately, most of them were not wearing shoes. They were just on socks or bare feet. So I asked them just to stay where they were, while I'm just like picking up all the small toys first by hands. and they just sweep all the glass pieces. So it took a really long time for me to clean up. And also it took really long time for them to just stay still on the same spot in that tiny room. So I was frustrated, very frustrated. And they started to get frustrated because it was taking a long time. So that was the end of the second meeting. So it was not a great one, but I think we just like reflected this very, very deeply later after this meeting. So we met weekly for 2 months as a sorting group. At one of the last few meetings, I brought in some special snack which the children called Cheerios with paint. I think you can just imagine what they were. And we usually have a healthy snack at the beginning of the meeting, but it was a special occasion, so I decided to just brought this. And this is what I wrote. After I served the handful amount of Cheerios with paint on everyone's paper napkin, I started to sort my portion by colors. Marion was really excited about this snack and ate her portion as soon as possible. Max, Tenzo, and Noah started to sorting by colors before eating when they saw me sorting. Henry first ate about a half of his portion, then started to sort the rest of them by color. They had their own ways to enjoy the special snack, with or without noticing what others were doing with it. So I started to sort the Cheerios with paint just because I didn't want to eat them. And I didn't have any expectation of what the children would do with them beside just eating. So when I saw some kids saw me or other kids and started to sort them by color, it was a moment I felt like our group holds the same understanding about what we are working on, even though it was probably unconscious. I felt like there was a sense of group belonging towards the goal of sorting after several weeks of meeting together. So, as a final project of the sorting group, I handed a digital camera to each child. Not the very nice and the new ones, but we had a bunch of used digital cameras, so we had enough for everybody. And we went for a walk on the canal. Canal is like right outside of the Hilltop building. It's a beautiful place. And they used their camera and then just really took pictures outside. And looking at those pictures children took, that was just really, really amazing how they see the world from their perspective. So I printed out those pictures and asked them to sort the pictures in the order they like so they can make a story. So this activity brought the creativity and the organization skill together. And I also think it was helpful for them to feel empowered and to feel the sense of ownership. And looking at their own pictures they took, they put the time and effort to create the stories of their own. Then I wrote down the stories next to the pictures, and it became their individual, one of a kind of book for each of them. So throughout the Indepth Project every year, I share about each meetings with the families. As I write the meeting summary, I send it to the families. So it became a series of learning stories by themselves. I also report in the write-ups that what we did, and also I ask them questions, or I ask them to share the feedbacks and the questions as parents. So after several weeks of communication with the families from this group, I learned that The dumping game wasn't so popular at home, which was kind of surprising to me. I also learned that many families struggle with the cleanup time at home, which was not surprising. So at the end of the Indepth Project, I sat with all of the parents from this group to reflect and discuss about our work together. One parent shared a story about her child and the dumping game. So this parent said her child doesn't do dumping and mixing at home, but when the child had a play date with a classmate, they started to mix all sort of items at home. So they were not like kids' toys. They just went everywhere in the house, just grabbed them and started to dump in the mix. So eventually it was too much for the parents, so they needed to stop the game. It was a long process to have them clean up, and I think parents have to do most of the job. So at the end of the day, after this game, these families just talk to the children, and then they aren't allowed to mix items anymore. So there, I noticed there is an adult view about this game, just like I used to had. And then it seems like a unhappy one for the adults. So after this family shared this experience, and all of us talked about how it made a difference to the children to gather weekly for the purpose of sorting. Their favorite game might be still the dumping game, but they might have included the new step in the game, which is about how to end the game. So the game may not look perfect for adults, teachers, and the parents for a long time from now, but we celebrated the learning together. The parents and me, teacher, celebrated that together. The children are learning, and then adults are also learning, and then we're all learning about ourselves, about each other, and about the differences. So here is another reflective question I would like you to ask. On this one, I just want you to pretend that you are me and wearing my shoes as an educator in the classroom. Questions are, after meeting the sorting group for 2 months, my discomfort with the dumping game has shifted to a lighter feeling. Why do you think this happened? What is the meaning of this game in the learning journey for the children? So again, I would like you to post the video for 5 to 10 minutes and then just think by yourself, or if you are with somebody else like you, maybe it's good to discuss with other people. So we'll come back after 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm excited to hear from you about my experience when you put my shoes on. Um, Still, this date, I wonder if I ever took the risk to face my own challenges in the classroom and sit with discomfort if there was no dumping. Did I ever do that without this game? I also wonder if I ever show and share the vulnerable moment with the children. As this presentation title says, the year was filled with the dumping fun into your life. With a shift of the perspective, anything can be a learning for all of us. I am glad that I decided to be open minded and to create the intentional dumping space under the name of sorting. And by writing what happened in the each games and the each meetings, we were able to revisit the moment to reflect. Also, by sharing the stories and collaborating with the families, We were able to gather ideas about finding the middle ground of dumping fun and the responsibility. So, to do this presentation, I read all my stories again about this dumping game after a couple years. And knowing and accepting own challenges are ongoing work. And when learning through the children, it can be a fun work. So I'd like to hear your vulnerable moment in the classroom as well. Have you had discomfort in the classroom? How did you work through that feeling? Okay, thank you so much for listening and then stay with me.
Thank you, Malcolm. That was amazing. I really do appreciate that. I would love if you can stop sharing your screen so I can see your face.
Here you go.
So as I sit there and listen, I thought of some more questions that I would love to ask you if you have a moment or two.
Sure.
Perfect. So one of the questions that I thought of is how have you seen the kids grow from this? Um, and kind of a follow up to that is also have they incorporated this kind of dumping and sorting into other play or other conversations that you witnessed?
Yeah, I think we definitely saw the difference. Even though we didn't say anything with our words, like if we do this, this is going to happen, or if we work on this, this is a result. Nothing, but things naturally happen. And I think what we saw the most is they started to just think ahead about anything they do.
Mm.
Yeah, that was the biggest, yeah, takeaway for all of us. Like, not necessarily just the dumping game, but they always think about like two steps ahead about their games.
And how did this dumping game affect? Because when you do it in depth, you're pulling a certain amount of kids away from the entire group. So, did you see any effects that this small group had on the larger class?
Yes. So we intentionally chose certain kids. And then when they go back to the whole classroom, they're definitely kind of advocating about
Mm,
what they learned or what they thought about during the small group. So yeah, it made a difference for the whole classroom.
perfect. And what makes you or uncomfortable now?
Uh, I think I let go a lot of things. I think the biggest one is like when children have a hard time to move on with the big feelings.
Mm,
When they take a really long time, I kind of get lost. I'm like, oh, what can I do next? And I try to just find a solution for them. So those times I just like tell myself like, you know what? Everybody has a different speed, different way. So let's just sit with them as much as possible. But yeah, still I kind of try to find the solutions or try to fix something. Yeah, that's what it is.
and what are some of the cultural, I guess, just considerations you took into account as you were doing this dumping and sorting, or even communicating with the families?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the first part?
What were some of the cultural considerations that you took into account?
Yeah, there is I thought about like a bigger, like a background kind of culture consideration and also like each family's culture differences. So I try to be like really open about my cultural background or my comfort level or my beliefs. And I asked each families about them too. And then just try to be really, really open minded and then vulnerable as much as possible so they feel the same way.
So the title of this workshop was called "Sorting Through Discomfort: Dumping Fun into Your Life." How have you taken on, I guess, a more childlike or fun approach to the work? Because we're in COVID. There's so many different things happening. Where have you found that joy?
Really be on children's eye level, and at the end of the day, every day, it's okay. If anything happened, it's still okay. We're still okay. We're still having fun. We're coming back to the same place and the same people, and it's been okay. I think that's just the biggest takeaway. Like, I might feel uncomfortable. I may not agree with their games, and then the kids may not agree with me. But in the end of the day, we're just having fun and doing okay.
I love it.
Yeah, I think the world is like relaxing.
Mm.
Yeah,
So my last question to you is, or two questions.
sure.
The first one is, what is your biggest takeaway from this group?
I thought I was making the space for them in the classroom, but I wasn't fully making a space.
Mm.
So that was great to know and acknowledging and understanding about that part.
And the last question, which might you might have just answered it, is what would you do differently?
Mm, well, so it was not just me, and two other co-teachers are also frustrated about this. And we took long time to solve this problem about dumping for us. What I would do differently is probably try to shift the questions quicker. Like, we're just like talking about this week after week after week after week. So before spending like many weeks, maybe we should have asked the different questions to ourselves.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Do
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
any questions that you asked yourself?
yeah. So that's what I would do differently. Like, if one question is not working after a couple weeks, just change the question to ourselves.
Do you remember which question that you asked?
So the first one was like, all three of us, like, how can we stop them from dumping and losing the toys? And then we spent way too much time for that. So then second question was my question, which was like, what would happen if we just let them do it?
Mm.
Yeah. So the shift to the second question, could be happening earlier.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your knowledge, your wisdom, your thoughtfulness in delivering this amazing story, and I'm excited to see what other stories you can come up with, other workshops I can tie you into, and I'm truly blessed, and I'm lucky to be in community with you.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. And this was just like great opportunity to reading my own stories and just put this knowledge into my current classroom. Thank you so much.
So we will be back on Friday, June 25th at 12 p.m. for a debrief session. So after you watch this video, after you've reflected on this workshop, after you ask yourself those important reflective questions, come and join us. Come and join us. Come and join Alco to talk about what did you learn? How did you incorporate this into your environment? What were some of the aha moments you had? Come with questions, thoughts, comments, and we cannot wait to see you then. So until then, take care and we will see you soon.